Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Said it about an hour ago. It still stands. There's no team hotter in the transfer portal on the high school recruiting trail than Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, landing their second commitment of the day in Xadavien Sims from the state of Oklahoma. So much to like about Xadavien Sims, and honestly, a perfect fit for what Dan Lanning wants to do on the offensive side of the ball. And you're starting to see this. You take a look at some of the top prospects in the country who are taking a look at Oregon. David Stone, Williams Emanari, Elijah Rushing. If you are a pass rusher, if you play in the front seven, you want to go play for Dan Lanning, you take a look at what he did in Athens, Georgia with all the draft picks, specifically on the defensive line that he put out into the NFL. Like, the track record is there, and that's why these kids are heading to Eugene. Now, before we get into it again, just want to say thank you to you guys, whether you're watching Michael Van Buren about an hour ago, Xadavien Sims right now. The support you guys have shown, especially the Oregon Duck fans, has been absolutely awesome. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. This is one of the programs we are highest on heading into 2023. You got Bo Nix back at quarterback, a ton of good players in the transfer portal. Very excited to talk more about Oregon Ducks, but the fans have been absolutely awesome. So if you do enjoy it, subscribe to the channel. Over 5,300 subscribers is truly incredible, and that's all thanks to you guys. Let's talk about Xadavien Sims first. I want to talk about why he's such a perfect fit for Dan Lanning and what he wants to do, and quite frankly, why all these schools were after a guy in Xadavien Sims. You're seeing in college football, in kind of the modern defense, at the college football level and the NFL level, how important it is to have multiple fronts and having versatile defensive linemen. 6'3", 275 pounds as a rising senior going into his senior year in high school. That tells you a lot. This guy can play a 3-tech, can play on kind of inside, can play outside the tackle, playing at the 5-tech role. He can do so much, and you know Dan Lanning is going to move him around. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with his body. Are they going to put him up to 300 pounds and kind of play on the inside? Or are they going to keep him at 270, 275 and play him more as an edge rusher? Either way you do it, he can do a little bit of both. And you go check out what he did at high school. There's a reason why all these top Power 5 teams wanted a guy like Xadavien Sims. It seemed to come down to Michigan State, Oklahoma. He chooses Oregon because he knows he's going to get developed by Dan Lanning. He's going to be put in situations where he's going to be able to thrive in. Kind of very similar play to Jordan Burch, elite power, and you're going to develop some of the more technical pass rush moves, but you can't really teach the power, the bull rush that Xadavien Sims brings. We're going to take a look at what he did at the high school level because it's truly one of the more fun film sessions to watch. You see him playing kind of head up on the center here, and this is kind of what we mean. He's a guy that can do it all, but the power, the explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, he's a game wrecker. He's a pocket collapser. And at the college football level, there's nothing more important than that. Now you see him doing a little bend, little speed rush on the outside, playing more of that 5 technique. Now he's back on the inside. But the thing that you're most excited about is his ability to move offensive linemen against their will, get into the backfield, and kind of collapse and create havoc in the backfield. That's something that all college football coaches want when it comes to negative plays. And he's 275 pounds. Making a play in space like that, he can do so many different things. Another interesting kind of note about his recruitment, played a lot of tight end as well. You saw Mateo Yu also play tight end for Oregon in the spring game. Kind of similar body types. I don't think he'll be playing tight end. I also don't think Mateo Yu is going to be playing that much tight end at the college football level either. But it kind of shows you just how much of a freak athlete you see getting off the ball here. This dude is someone you don't really want to play against. And I love what Dan Lanning's doing. This is something that he focused on in Georgia too. You think about some of the guys that he produced out of Georgia, guys who have power. And if you have power and people have to respect your pass rush in terms of going right through you, they got to plant heavy. And that's when the speed, that's when the technicality can start to kind of show. He did a phenomenal job at Georgia. Think of guys like Trayvon Walker, Robert Beal, guys who could go right through tackles. And when tackles have to set heavy, that's when they start winning on the outside. You have guys in Oregon, Mateo Yu being one of them. I think Jordan Burch in the transfer portal from South Carolina being another. And now Xadavien Sims. You got guys who can play all along the defensive line. You imagine a couple of years from now when you have Xadavien Sims, Mateo Yu, maybe rushing from the inside with some elite pass rushers on the outside. That's when this pass rush can really get going. That's what Dan Lanning prided himself in terms of what he did at Georgia is pass rush, getting pressure with the front four, and then letting that takes a lot off the secondary. That's something we've talked about a lot, is what is the best way to get a better pass defense? It's getting a better pass rush. right? I think Oregon struggled giving up the big play last year. And it might have been a result of kind of a weaker pass rush than Dan Lanning is used to having at Georgia. I think he took an evaluation of what he had on the defensive line and says, hey, we got to get the dogs that we need to get after the passer and take a little bit pressure off that secondary. And that's exactly what he's doing, whether it's in the transfer portal with Jordan Burch, whether it's on the recruiting trail with Mateo Yu and Xadavien Sims. I think you're going to see a pass rush from Oregon over the next couple of years that is going to be really dangerous. And you talk about who the outs they could potentially get going into this 2024 class. David Stone, a very similar player who's around 270, 275 pounds that can play inside, that can play outside. Williams Emaneri, 265-pound edge from Missouri. He's another guy that can play all over the defense line. Both guys who've taken visits to Oregon are clearly intrigued about what Dan Lanning kind of offers on the defensive side of the ball. And then some guys that Oregon's trending heavily for. Elijah Rushing, one of the best pure edge rushers in this class that's considering and seemingly that Oregon has kind of the inside track on. We talked about this with Michael Van Buren, so I'm not going to go totally into it because I know we had a lot of people just listen to Michael Van Buren's breakdown a little bit ago. This class is developing very nicely in terms of depth, right? You are filling, this is your 12th to 13th commit in the 2024 class, and it's 5 or 6 guys who are in the top 250 in terms of bona fide, like blue chip 4-star prospects. They're building that out. And now I think Dan Lanning's going to take a little look, pivot a little bit, and start going after some of these big dogs. Williams Emaneri, David Stone. Dan Lanning swings a lot bigger of a stick than I think a lot of people gave him credit for as a head coach. You go back and look what he did at Georgia and some of the recruiting he did and getting guys into Athens. And then on top of that, developing those guys. Dan Lanning, if you were a top edge rusher, you're top front 7 player in general, you want to go play for Dan Lanning because what he did in Athens, and you know you're going to get developed, which is something we always talk about. Never really seemed to be the case with Mario Cristobal. He brought in a lot of top talent. It never really seemed like that top talent, maybe barring a few of these players, kind of reached their potential. Dan Lanning combines bringing in top talent with those guys reaching their potential. You think about Jordan Davis. You think about Nolan Smith. You think about Trayvon Walker, the former first-round NFL draft pick. Those guys were athletic, and then they reached their potential. And that's what I think truly can be special for this Oregon team. Because Dan Lanning, if you had any worry about the drop-off in recruiting under Dan Lanning from Mario Cristobal, I don't think you're worrying about that anymore. Dan Lanning is getting it done, and you're going to see a higher level of development for this Oregon Ducks team. Again, it seems like we're talking all Oregon right now because they've been so active, whether it's in the transfer portal, the recruiting class, or recruiting trail, I should say. But again, I just can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown, especially the Oregon Ducks fans. So again, if you do enjoy the content, lock in, subscribe to the channel because I don't think this thing is slowing down anytime soon. And we'll talk to y'all later. Wanted to keep it short, but back-to-back Oregon commits, and it just things are heating up in Eugene. All right, we'll talk to y'all later. Appreciate you guys checking us out, and we'll peace.